Today we're installing a brand new FX6 to handle the new bioload that the Stingray is producing, on top of the fact that I've got to feed more food for him, which means everybody else is eating in the tank, which means everybody else is producing more waste as well. So we're going to add a second FX6 to this 150. I'm going to show you guys exactly how I choose to set up my FX6, and we're going to get it installed. You ready? Let's go. So for the first timers, let's get this canister open. On top of the canister are these white knobs that can be spun lefty-loosey. After they're loose, you can easily pop them off of the top, put them on the side, and then the cover of the canister comes right off. Put that to the side. Now you can grab the red handles and pull all three of your trays out as one whole unit. Put that to the side and check out how deep your canister is. Wrapped around your canister, you're gonna find your hose. It's attached with a little rubber band. Just get rid of that rubber band and remove your hose from the outside of the canister. Put that off to the side. This plastic saran wrap thing is probably just here just to prevent any scratches on the outside of the filter. Some people leave it on. I choose to take it off. Preference is yours. So setting up the FX6 is extremely simple once you've done it a few times. First thing I like to do is get everything separated and now in the open, so I got all my parts ready to go. And the first thing we're gonna attack are these trays. I'm gonna try to explain this setup as if it was your first FX6 ever. So those of you that have a little bit more experience, give me a little bit of time to get through the basic stuff for those first timers, okay? Let's get this going. After removing your trays from the basket, they're gonna be all intact here, which you can lift up from these little red tabs. Pull them out to the side. And these red tabs come off. Put them to the side. Now you got three separate baskets. 1, 2, 3's on the bottom. The Fluval FX6 comes with Fluval ceramic rings. These things are pretty cute, but we're not gonna use that. We're going with Seachem Matrix for the entire FX6 for multiple reasons. I'll get into that later in the video. So you wanna separate your trays. Now, inside your trays, you also have these red trays, which if you lift them up and out, you got even more cute ceramic rings. We're not using that. These red trays are also optional. The reason why Fluval includes these red trays inside of these white trays is so that you can choose to use different types of media. You can have one type inside the basket here and then add another type right on top of it, and that way you can have multiple types. But like I just said, we're going all Seachem Matrix in this, so this red tray actually just takes up space that we don't need, so we're getting rid of these red trays as well. You don't have to though, optional if you wanted to mix up your media. So this was the middle tray that I started with, but your top tray then has a black foam pad and inside of a red tray. Again, we're not going to use this red tray or this black foam pad. I got something better for you. So just making sure there's nothing else under here. Nope. The only thing in the top tray is the black foam pad and the red tray. We're tossing this whole thing to create more space inside the basket. Under the red tray is another black bio foam pad. We're not using this, we're tossing this as well. Remember guys, this is my method of how I set up my FX6s. You can absolutely use those red trays and those black foam pads if you wanted to, but I'm showing you how I do it. Then in your bottom tray, you've got a little baggie. I guess it's for chemical media. If you wanted to put chemical media, we don't need that either. And finally, at the bottom of your very last tray, this is a charcoal pad from Fluval, which we're not going to use this either. As you can see, I'm basically tossing everything and leaving it bare minimum. Only thing we're keeping are these thick coarse sponges that go along the side in all three trays. That's all we're doing. Next step is to set up these trays with the biomedia of choice. As we discussed, we're going to use Seachem Matrix. Now, one 4-liter bucket, this is a 4-liter bucket of Matrix. One 4-liter bucket will fill all the trays inside of your FX6. This is enough for one FX6. Keep in mind, this stuff comes very dusty when it's brand new. What I'm gonna do is grab it, check out my hand. Super dusty already. So after you fill these trays, you're gonna wanna rinse them out to rinse all the dust off of the Matrix before adding it to your tank. So you want to fill the bottom 2 trays all the way to the max. And then you got a little left over for the bottom half of your top tray. Now I'm going to take all 3 of these trays. Check out the dust that already left on the floor. Check that out. I'm going to take all 3 of these trays now and go rinse them out and get all that dust out of there. Do not tell my wife that I'm doing this in the kitchen sink or I will be in trouble. Boom. All right, we got our trays fully loaded. They're cleaned and rinsed off. Now to stack them back up, guys, you'll notice that you got this big gap, big round gap on this side and this little gap here. The little gap is for those red handles that you saw earlier. So we're gonna line up the big, just line up either one. Line up the small with the small and the big with the big when you stack them up, and you'll be able to feel that the trays are seated correctly as soon as you stack them up. These 3 trays can go in any order, but I'm keeping this one the top tray because this is the one that only has half of the tray full of Matrix. And we're doing that for a specific reason. I'm gonna get to it in a second. Now you can grab your red little handles and pop them right back in, just as they were before. From the bottom tray all the way to the top, they'll click in. And now you got your handles in place. Now for this next part, we have to understand the direction of water flow in an FX6. It's not the same as all canisters. What happens in the FX6 is that water first enters the FX6 and goes all the way down to the bottom of the canister. From the bottom of the canister, it travels its way up the sides through all of these coarse sponges. Through all of these coarse sponges, all at the same time. They go in through the bottom one, then they go in through the middle tray, then they go through the top tray, all around the sides of the trays of the canister. Then the water overflows into the middle tray and travels down the middle tray back to the bottom of the 3 trays and then out of your canister. I know it seems a little weird, but that's the way the FX6 is designed. So it's very important to understand that because of what I'm going to show you right now. With the water traveling up the sides first and going through your coarse sponges, that's exactly what you want to trap the big particles of waste and detritus. Next, when it goes through your middle trays, you want the cleanest water possible to hit your biomedia. So right before it goes down the center and before it hits your biomedia is when you want to have a nice quick clear pad made from Fluval. These are $5 or $10 and they're gonna help make your water super duper crystal clear. I normally use polyfill, but not in the FX6 filter because it's too strong for polyfill. This is the next best thing. One box comes with 3 of these pads. All you need is one, throw it right on the top, and that's gonna create your fine mechanical filtration to catch the tiniest of particles and make your water crystal clear. I think I know what your next question might be. Where does the chemical media go? Now, normally we know the order of media usually goes mechanical, then biological, and then chemical at the end. So according to what I just explained with the FX6, the end would actually be at the bottom tray of the FX6. We don't want to put chemical media in the bottom tray of the FX6 because chemical media needs to be replaced every 30, 45 days, something like that. In order to replace that, we would need to pull all of these 3 trays out of the canister, remove the top tray, remove the middle tray, just to get to the bottom tray where our chemical media is. That's going to disturb a lot of your beneficial bacteria. And if you had any possible anaerobic bacteria that could be starting to grow, which is a very good thing, you potentially kill it because you're now exposing all of the baskets to the wide open air. Anaerobic bacteria live in very low oxygen environments. You're gonna kill any anaerobic bacteria. So what we're gonna do instead with the chemical media is we're gonna put it in the top tray with the fine filter pad. Either on top of the filter pad or underneath of it, it doesn't really matter. The purpose of it is to be able to quickly pop the top off the FX6 and you have access to this top tray and you can easily replace the fine filter pad and the chemical media at the same time, put new stuff right back in, pop the top back on your canister without ever having to remove all three of your trays, and you're done. Now the reason why I'm not using chemical media in this FX6 right now is because my second FX6 that's on the tank already has 150 gallons worth of Seachem Purigen, and adding more Purigen than you need isn't gonna make things any better. It's just a waste of money. Use the amount intended for your tank size. Now that we got the trays all taken care of, we just grab it by the handles, throw it right back into the FX6. Make sure it's seated properly. And now we've got all of our trays inside the canister. At this point, guys, what I like to do, because we're adding a new filter with brand new media that doesn't have any bacteria on it, granted, if we just threw this on the tank, it will eventually grow beneficial bacteria on it from all the bacteria that's already in this tank and in the other filter. But I like to speed things up, and Seachem Stability is gonna do a great job of helping to grow beneficial bacteria on this brand new media. Get this filter seated as fast as possible, because the sooner we get beneficial bacteria in both of these filters, the sooner anaerobic bacteria can begin to grow, which takes 4, 5, or 6 months. So you gotta be patient with that. But I like to speed it up with a little bit of stability, get this filter completely cycled as fast as possible, and less time worrying about the cycle in the 150. Remember, we've got a new increased bioload in the 150, so the faster I can get my beneficial bacteria to grow and catch up to that new bioload, the sooner we'll have less possible ammonia spikes or nitrite spikes in this tank. Now the choice is yours. You can either add stability right down the center where all your biomedia is gonna go right down there, or you can choose to send the stability down to the bottom of the canister, where after we fill it up with water, it's gonna force this stability to go around all the sponges down through the middle as we discussed. Either one is fine. I like to do both. Keep in mind that this hole right here will get you to the bottom of the canister. This tube sticking out the top right here is actually the out, going back out to your tank. Now before putting the top back on your canister, in the manual, page 10, paragraph 9, article B12, I'm just kidding, I made that last one up. But paragraph 9 says, install at least 2 gallons of water in an FX6. If you've got an FX4, then you install 1.6 gallons. We got a 6, so we're gonna do 2 gallons, which is about halfway full. The reason why you wanna fill this up halfway full of water before installing is that's how you actually prime the filter, so that when you plug it in and start it up, it can start sucking water from your tank and pushing it back out to your tank. Okay, I got it loaded up with about halfway full of tap water, and anytime I add any brand new tap water to my aquarium system, I always dose with Prime. Seachem Prime is going to make sure to remove any chlorine that's in that tap water before sending it to your tank. 1 capful, more than enough. Now we're ready to pop the top back on. It can only go on one way. This tube can only go into this hole. Slide it in, it should feel nice and snug. Then line up your notches all around the top and flip your knobs up. If they don't go in snug, try loosening them up a bit. They should all go in and snap snug. If one of these knobs breaks off and falls off the top, don't freak out. It's not a big deal. It's very easy to replace right back into the filter top. See, if one of these fall off, you just gotta get this smooth edge. Put this smooth edge right along the bottom there. Flip it up and it'll pop right back into place. Nothing to freak out about. Now that you got them all on, you want to tighten them up the same way you would tighten up the lug nuts on your car's tire. 12 o'clock and then 6 o'clock. And you don't have to tighten them super tight like a Hulk. You just got to get them nice and snug and then work your way around. Snug is fine. They don't have to be torqued down. Do a final snug check all the way around and you're good to go. Canister sealed. Now comes the fun part. Now we're gonna go into our little box of goodies here and we're gonna grab our 2 valves out of the box. These go on very simple. You just push them down in and they'll click. It doesn't matter which one goes on which. What you do want to think about though is that the front of your FX6 is gonna face one way out of the tank and your hoses are gonna go towards the back of the tank. So you want the valve to point towards the back of the FX6. You don't want it to point this way. You want it to point that way. Now we got our hose. The FX6 only comes with 1 hose, but the trick here is that it's super duper long, so you gotta cut it in half and then you'll end up with 2 hoses. But this end that has these white pieces attached to it are the ends that go attached to these valves. So after wrestling with the hose for a little bit, you finally get it straightened out. Ugh, this hose kicking my butt. Straighten it out. You'll find the middle portion is really long. It's longer than my entire wingspan, guys. Check it out. I can't even stretch all the way out here to get this tarp. Okay, somewhere around here is the middle. Doesn't have to be exact because you're still gonna cut them to a precise measurement in a minute. Regular pair of scissors will get this cut no problem. There you go. Now you got 1 hose with your connection to the filter, and then you got your other hose with your connection to the filter. In your handy dandy box of parts, you've got some clamps right here. That's what we're gonna use now. All you need is a flathead screwdriver to tighten these clamps down on the hoses. When you push these hoses onto the valve, you'll notice that they already are pretty snug, just based on the design of the valve. But you do want to have these clamps on anyway and make sure that they're nice and snug. Once you feel that pressure that you can't spin it anymore, that's more than enough. I don't know if you can tell, I already broke out in a sweat, but the canister is ready to get installed under the tank, and then we're gonna measure our hoses for the exact placement of where we're gonna put our intake and our output over the top of the tank. Okay, here we go. Filters in place, hoses are set up. And now we just gotta set them up behind the tank. The fun part. So this part is gonna be a little extra special for me because I have 3D backgrounds installed in the tanks and my filter intakes go behind my 3D background. So let's see how this is gonna go. I'm gonna remove my light just to get it out of the way just in case. Should have moved the plant out of the way first too. So my output is pretty much gonna go right here on the outside of this brace. So it could be somewhere in the center of the tank, pointing this way so that it matches my other output. The first thing we gotta do is attach these clips to the back of your tank. Now these can be difficult for some people if you don't really understand even what you're looking at, but it's not that hard. First thing, remove these little U-shaped clips. It's really easy. There should be 1, 2, and 3 of them. These 3 are gonna hold your hose in place on the bracket. So you want to get your bracket bare like this. Put your 3 clips off to the side somewhere. Now if you take a look at your bracket here, it's got one end here that's got this little curve and the other side doesn't. So the end that's got this little curve here is the end that goes inside your tank. This is the front of the bracket, this is the back. And all you gotta do when you install it to the back of your tank is put it on a little angle like this, and then all you gotta do is give it a little twist like this, and it'll snap onto the back of your tank. It may be difficult, but you're not gonna break it. Just twist and push down and it'll snap. Like so. Hopefully you get to see this. I'm gonna try to do this one-handed with the camera. Hopefully you can see this. Another plant's in the way. See how I install it at an angle first? Now you just want to push down and rock it forward. Heard that snap? It's in place. Now where I just messed up at is exactly what I told you guys. This is the output spot. So the output doesn't go behind the background. The output goes in front of the background. So got to redo it. So now I snapped it back in, but now the front of the bracket is in front of the background, actually holding the background back on the top, so that helps. This is my pothos plant, by the way, hanging out the top of the tank while all the roots are in the water behind the background. So let's install our output hose now. First, determine which is the right one. Now comes measurement time, guys. So you don't ever want a lot of slack in this hose. You want it to be as straight as possible from the top of your tank down to your filter. So this measurement is kind of important. It's really not that difficult to do. You got to keep in mind that your output here, your hose is going to go inside of this tube down about an inch or an inch and a half inside that tube. So you got to account for that amount of space on your measurement. So if we just take a look here, pull all the slack out of the hose. Make sure nothing's slacking it up. Pull all the slack out of the hose. Give it that bend. It's gonna come to the bottom of here. Plus or minus that little inch. There you go, you've got a spot. Now, if you're gonna cut this hose, it's safer to give it a little bit more space than you need than a little less space than you need. If you cut the hose too short, there's nothing you can do about that. If you cut it too long, you're okay, you can do another cut. Taking my own advice, I gave it about an extra inch or so. Now all you need to do is put the hose inside this output valve. Give it a little push, it'll slide in. You don't need to worry about any clamps or anything on this end because this end is always fully submerged in the water. Point your little output valves the direction you want the water to go. Set it in there nicely. Now that you got your hose in place, you want to put your clamps back on. Your clamp, little U-shaped clamps. Start with the top one, just push down. It'll hold it there. Then go with the front one. Push it in. It'll click and lock. There you go, the hose is being held. One more in the back. Keep this hose straight, and boom, good to go. Now I probably should have done my intake first because the intake's going behind the background and now this hose is pressing the background to the back of the tank. Oh well, we're gonna do it anyway, see if it works. I think I got enough space. Looks like there's enough clearance here to get the intake in there. Not gonna be a problem. Should be fine. Now with your intake, you want to remember that this is a telescoping intake tube here. So you can always stretch it out and make it longer. But I like to make my measurement and have this in place with it fully closed. That way if I wanted to ever extend it, I can and I don't have to worry about the hose. Mind you, I don't put this intake all the way down to the bottom of the tank. I keep it about halfway. Okay, so I closed the curtain just so we can get a little better lighting. Hopefully that helps. But your intake is gonna go right here on this corner of the tank and we're gonna get it in behind the background. So first things first, we gotta put our bracket on, right guys? Same thing as before. We're gonna take the 3 little clips off. 1, 2, don't drop them into your tank. 3. This curve is going in the front, inside the water, in the front end of the tank. Little splash for everybody there. So if I've got this about halfway down right here, that's where my intake goes. Then my hose is gonna go up through here. It's gonna bend down and go about yay so. Okay? I've got it marked right here. And even though I marked it there, I'm gonna stay a little safe and I'm gonna go up to here. Because if you cut it too short, you're, you know what, out. Into the intake. Push it in there, nice and snug. Perfect. Move your patos over so you don't crush it. And then we get it into, my shades are turning into a real pain in the butt. Stuff it down into the back. Alright, I got pretty good depth there. You can see it kind of popped my background out a bit, but that's okay. I don't mind that. Because you get the benefits of hiding your intakes behind the background and you can't see any of that. I'm going to put our clips back on. Alright. Whoa, that would have been bad. That would have been bad. So here's what it looks like installed. The intake down the side. Can't really see back there. Yeah, the background's popped out a bit. It's not a big deal. Can't tell any of that when you're looking at the display from the front. Here's the output, fully installed. Now we're gonna fire this sucker up. So we're all hooked up and ready to go. I've got my output valves facing upwards towards the surface to create some surface agitation. If Flaco Dos wants to get out of the way, you can take a look at that. Just like my first FX6 output is facing upwards to create surface agitation, they're both turning towards the right hand side of the tank to create a flow of water going in the same direction. Now we're gonna fire this up, and just know that when I do, it's still gonna blow out a little bit of dust and the water will get cloudy right away, but that's gonna clear up real quick. You guys ready? Let's do it. Let's fire this thing up. Here we go. Like I said, it's gonna blow out some dust, but that's all right. They think it's food. You hear that crazy sound? That's the FX6 priming and filling. Totally normal. See if you guys can hear it. Remember, we only filled it up halfway, so it's gonna self-prime. It'll shut off in about a minute or so, release all the air that's trapped inside of it, and fill itself up completely. Now, that's a cloudy tank, isn't it? We'll be back in a few minutes and I'll show you how quickly this clears up now that it's got 2 FX6s on it. There you go, FX6 just shut off. Listen to that. Check out the bubbles. That's all the air being released from inside of the FX6 as it fills with water. And then there was quiet. No more sound coming from the filter, no more bubbles. It'll stay off for another 30-45 seconds, totally normal, don't freak out. It will kick back on its own. There you go. FX6 is completely full and it's kicked back on. You could check out the surface agitation that the outputs are creating right up there. more surface agitation, more oxygen, more flow in the whole entire tank, more filtration. After about an hour, we're right back to crystal clear water. Now I know what your next question is gonna be. How do I clean my filter? Well, I got you covered right here in that video. Or your question might be, when do I know it's time to clean my filter? That's gonna be that video right there. Wherever you end up, I'll see you on the other side. Peace.